Was Valentine's Day invented by candy and card companies to sell more product? Short answer, no. Long answer, Valentine's Day can be traced back to two separate Saint Valentines, both of which were martyred in Rome. In fact, they may have been the same person, we're not totally sure. Valentine of Rome preached to persecuted Christians in Rome and was martyred, then buried along the Via Flaminia. Valentine of Terni was a bishop that traveled to Rome, was tortured, then executed, and buried along the Via Flaminia. Both were killed on February 14th, 269, so yeah, there's a pretty good chance it was the same guy. And if you'd like, you can visit the flower-crowned skull of St. Valentine at the Church of Santa Maria in Rome. The Feast of St. Valentine was set on the 14th by Pope Gelasius I in 496, and it was simply a day of veneration for the saint, not much different from the multiple other feasts that were throughout the year. Now, there are all kinds of legends that have been attached to Valentine, the saint, not the day. Well, okay, technically kind of both. From healing a blind girl's sight to marrying soldiers that weren't allowed to marry in secret, to himself writing the first Valentine, signing it Your Valentine, and all manner of folktales and legends. Much of how the holiday is celebrated in present day comes from these legends. He supposedly wore an amethyst ring with the image of Cupid on it, leading to Amethyst becoming the birthstone of February, and well, of course, Cupid being attached as the creepy flying bow and arrow guy. As I said before, Valentine supposedly gave the first Valentine, which is why we refer to them as such, both the card and the person. In truth, there's very little evidence that any of these legends are true. Valentine's Day linking up with the idea of love dates back to Chaucer, the Canterbury Tales guy, and his poem, The Parliament of Fowls, which proclaimed Valentine's to be a day for lovers. However, he was referring to a different St. Valentine's Day, celebrated on May 3rd and named for a different St. Valentine that was from Genoa. When it comes to February 14th, the first connection to love is from an announcement made by Charles VI of France, also known as Charles the Beloved and Charles the Mad, known as the Charter of the Court of Love, though nothing really ever came of it. Keep in mind here, Charles had some mental issues. Half the time he had no idea who his wife and children were, and he even killed several of his own knights during an incident when he suddenly believed that he was being betrayed and started wildly swinging his sword. He had to be subdued before killing anyone else. Yeah. The first actual recorded Valentine was from Charles, Duke of Orleans, and was a poem. Well, technically it was a rondeau, a type of medieval poem he wrote to his wife while he was being held prisoner in the Tower of London. Also, something to keep in mind was that the 14th of their time would have been about the 23rd of our time due to the Gregorian calendar not being introduced until 1582, meaning it was closer to spring, and spring has always had a connection to fertility and love, hence its connection to Valentine's Day. Oh, and the heart shape used for Valentine's, which looks nothing like a real heart, most likely comes from the shape of silphium, which was a plant used in ancient times as both an aphrodisiac and a contraceptive. Now, we don't know if this was an actual plant or if it was one that simply has gone extinct, seeing as we have no idea what this plant actually was. The holiday grew in popularity mostly in the United Kingdom, where in 1835 60,000 Valentines were mailed out, and once the first adhesive postage stamp, the black penny, was introduced in 1840 and the cost of postage dropped significantly, that number grew to nearly 400,000. This also helped introduce the idea of anonymous Valentines. See, an industry didn't create Valentine's Day created an industry. Cards were rather popular but typically handmade, so companies started printing what were known as mechanical Valentines that were sold to the public. Charles Dickens referred to it as Cupid's Manufactory. They were originally known to typically have lace on them, but the cost came down in the mid-1800s with the introduction of paper lace. When one of these paper-laced Valentines was sent to a woman named Esther Howland in 1847, she saw an opportunity to make better quality American cards than was what was on the market. So she created the New England Valentine Company and began producing higher quality European-style Valentines as well as cheaper versions. Today, Esther is known as the Mother of the American Valentine. Bet you didn't know that was a title. And their popularity exploded in America. By the way, the Greeting Card Association gives an annual Esther Howland Award for Greeting Card Visionary. Not to be outdone, Cadbury released the first heart-shaped box of chocolates called Fancy Boxes in 1868, 7 years before they introduced the world to chocolate eggs eggs in case you were wondering. And of course, the holiday just continued to grow in popularity. And in the mid to late 1900s, giving gifts other than cards or chocolate began to become popular, particularly jewelry, mostly pushed by marketing. So in short, did Valentine's Day start as a way for companies to make money? No. Did companies find ways to make the holiday more popular, kind of like Christmas and Halloween, in order to make more money? Yes. You bet your sweet ass they did. Oh, and by the way, St. Valentine is also the patron saint of epilepsy. So there you go.